Hi, I'm Ken Oakes with Oakes Daylilies. We did a video, it's been a couple years back now, about how to plant a bed of daylilies. And in that video we talked about really all the things involved, preparing the soil, where to site it, how far apart to plant the daylilies, how to plant the daylilies. And so we're going to show that video now, and then at the end we're going to come back and show you what the bed looks like today. So the daylilies that I'm going to be planting in the bed today are some that I dug up from an old planting. So these are some big clumps. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide them down before I plant. And before I do that, I'm going to trim the tops. And there's a couple of reasons why I like to trim the tops when I move daylilies. First off, normally when you dig up a daylily and move it, the foliage is going to look like you dug it up and moved it. It's going to wilt some, maybe turn yellow. And so it's just going to look better if you trim it. Now, I suppose if you dug it up and moved it and planted it just right away and watered it in good, you might not have as much wilt or effect from that. But for the most part, I just recommend trimming the tops back. So I'm just going to use, we use some just old steak knives here at the nursery, so that's what I'm going to use to trim it with. So I'm going to trim it just about 4 or 6 inches from the roots here. And pretty much all there is to it is just cut through like that. And I'm just going to go around and trim. Trim all of it. So like I said, I just use our old steak knives that we use here at the nursery. You could use garden scissors or just whatever you've got. They're pretty easy to trim. One other reason that I recommend trimming the tops on the daylilies is that the next step is dividing them. And it makes it easier just to see what you're working with if you get the foliage out of the way. So one of the questions we get is, how big do you want to divide your daylilies before you plant? And so when daylily plants, you can divide down as small as just a single plant like this. This is called a fan, so it's got a plant attached to roots. So this is as small as you could divide it down, but if you divide them down this small, it's going to take probably a couple years or more before you get a good, get good bloom on this. So I recommend that you don't divide them down this small, that you leave a few plants together. Now a lot of daylily clumps will just divide pretty easily, so I'll check and see if this one's one of those, and if it is, I should just be able to pull this apart. So let's see how that works. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that pulled apart pretty easily. So you see this clump here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little plants in it there. So this is a good size. This is what I would want to plant. This is about the same size as what we send on the plants that we sell. And the reason I like selling something this size is because it should bloom for me this first year. And so I'm just going to divide this clump down to where they're all about that size. So if the clump doesn't pull apart easily, I'm just going to take my knife and just sort of slip it in there and cut a little bit. Maybe twist a little bit like that. And then see if that doesn't, help it to pull apart like that. Yeah. So there we go. And if it's harder, if it doesn't want to pull apart, well, just cut a little bit more. Even if you have to cut through the roots, these are daylilies, and so it's not going to hurt them. So, that's what I'm doing right there. I'm going to divide these down in half. Like I said, this was a pretty old clump. I think it'd probably been there 10 years or more. So I'm going to get 5 or 6 nice little chunks out of here. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'll do this one more time. All right, there we go. Looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 nice chunks out of that clump. Okay, so a question we get a lot is how far apart do you want to plant your daylilies? Typically, you're going to want to plant your daylilies between 18 and 24 inches apart. Normally, if a plant has a big bloom, it oftentimes has a bigger plant. And a lot of times if it has a small bloom, it has a smaller plant. And so, it kind of makes sense. You're going to plant the smaller plants a little bit closer together because they're not going to make as big a clump. And you're going to plant the bigger plants with the bigger blooms a little further apart. So I'll show you what we came up with here on this bed. So the varieties I'm planting today are larger bloom varieties with a little larger plant. I just kind of eyeballed them as I laid them out in the bed. Looks like they came up about 21, 22 inches apart. And that looks pretty good to me, so I'm gonna leave them like this. Now, one thing you might notice after you plant, if you space them this far apart, is after you get them planted, they may look like they're too far apart. But you'll be glad, later on this year and especially next year when they clump up and the clumps get bigger, because they'll look good then. So you'll be glad you plant a little further apart than might look right now. So I'm getting ready to plant the daylilies. One thing I'm going to do today as I plant is I'm going to use a product that we have called a grow tab, and it's made for transplanting daylilies. And basically it's just a tab that you drop into the bottom of the hole as you plant. So I'm going to put this in there. Question we get a lot is, how deep do you plant your daylilies? Daylilies are planted not particularly deeply. You can tell on these the dirt's still on there. So this is about ground level right there. You see where the dirt was. Now if you if we ship these to you, we've obviously washed the dirt off, but you'll be able to tell there'll be a white line in between the roots and the top, and that's about ground level right there. So that's how I'm going to plant that. So I'm just going to pull the dirt back. I'm going to drop my grow tab down in there. Put the daylily on top. I'm just going to spread the roots out a little bit like that, and then just cover it up to about the level that it was before. Then I'm just going to mash it in there good. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So now that I've got my daylilies planted, I'm going to go back over the top with a little granular fertilizer. This is a blend that we had made by a fertilizer company here local to us. So you can get this on our website. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this, about 2 spoonfuls full for each plant is about all you need. So it's not a lot. I don't have a spoon with me today, but I'll sort of estimate. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it around the plant. Just like that, sort of circle around the plant. Let's do the same thing there. Like a couple spoonfuls is all. Just like that. Alright, so that's about all that you need. A bag like this is just a 4-pound bag, but this is enough to do about 75 to 100 daylilies. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mulch the bed. Today I'm just using some wood chips, and I use these in large part because we get them free. But when I'm doing landscaping at my house, for instance, I go ahead and pay for the better looking stuff. But daylilies aren't real particular about what kind of mulch you use, wood chips, pine straw, just whatever you got. So I'm just going to spread some around the plant. Like that. So it doesn't have to be too thick, inch or 2. Mulch is great for a couple different reasons. It will help keep weeds down, and it'll help keep moisture in. So I definitely recommend, putting mulch on your beds. Got the bed mulched. One last thing I'm going to do before I'm done, I'm going to water it in really good. And then we'll give this some time to get growing, and we'll see what it looks like here in a couple months. All right, so like I mentioned, it's been a couple years since we planted. We intended to do this follow-up video last year, and it slipped by us and we didn't do it. So these looked really good last year as well, but as you can see, they look really good this year. This variety in the front is Chicago Star, nice big 7-8 inch yellow blooms, and then the variety in the back is Primal Scream, which is a really bright, rich orange color. It'll be even brighter later in the day. We're shooting this early morning. You might notice these are leaning a little bit in the front. Our poles rotted off and the sign fell down, so it fell on these a few days ago, so they don't normally lean like that. But as you can see, this turned out really nice, and so this is the kind of thing you could do in your garden if you want to add a bed of daylilies. You look forward to something like this. So we've been growing daylilies for over 40 years, and we love to talk about all things daylily. And we shot a lot of different videos about daylilies. We did one just last week about, really, I just walked through the garden. This is our display garden behind me here, where we have our annual Daylily Festival at the end of June each year.
So you might want to check that video out. People seem to enjoy that one. And if you have any questions or comments about daylilies, you can certainly put them below, or our contact information is on the website. We'd love to hear from you.